In a world grappling with crime and justice, there exist places where hope seemingly vanishes, replaced by the cold, hard reality of retribution. These are the fortresses of confinement, the institutions designed to house society's most hardened criminals. Within their impenetrable walls, a different set of rules applies, a stark contrast to the freedoms enjoyed by those on the outside. Today, we embark on a journey into the depths of one such place, a prison whispered about in hushed tones, a place known simply as the last stop. Our destination is not for the faint of heart. It is a place where the air is thick with tension, where every glance from a guard speaks volumes, and where the clang of metal against metal serves as a constant reminder of the unforgiving nature of confinement. We are about to step into a world where rehabilitation is a distant whisper, and punishment reigns supreme. This is a world where the worst of humanity is kept at bay, separated from the society they threatened. The ominous silhouette of the Last Stop prison looms large against the horizon, a stark monument to the consequences of transgression. Its sheer scale is enough to inspire trepidation, a concrete and steel behemoth designed to contain those deemed too dangerous for the outside world. The 4-meter-high concrete walls, stark and unforgiving, encircle the complex, a physical manifestation of the impenetrable barrier between the incarcerated and the free world. Atop the walls, coils of razor wire glint menacingly in the sunlight, a stark warning to those who might contemplate escape. Their presence serves as a constant reminder of the futility of such thoughts, a visual representation of the prison's commitment to absolute security. The message is clear: this is a place of no return. The heavy steel gate groans open, its rusted hinges a symphony of despair. It is a sound that speaks volumes, a sound that signals the end of one life and the beginning of another, one shrouded in shadows and defined by confinement. As we pass through the threshold, we leave behind the world of freedom and enter a realm where every action is scrutinized, every movement controlled. The air within the prison walls is heavy with the weight of unspoken stories, of lives forever altered, of dreams shattered against the harsh reality of imprisonment. The silence is deafening, broken only by the echo of our footsteps on the cold, concrete floor and the distant clang of metal doors slamming shut, a constant reminder of the prison's unforgiving grip on its inhabitants. The oppressive atmosphere of the Last Stop is inescapable. It seeps into your pores, a constant reminder that this is a place where freedom is but a distant memory. The guards, faces hardened by years of service within these walls, move with an air of authority that commands respect, their every gesture a testament to the ever-present danger that lurks within the shadows. The clanging of metal gates and the echoing footsteps of guards on patrol serve as a constant soundtrack to this symphony of despair. The air is thick with tension, a palpable reminder that behind these bars violence is always simmering just below the surface, ready to erupt at a moment's notice. We are a motley crew, this group of journalists, each of us drawn here by a different motivation. Some seek to expose the harsh realities of prison life, to give a voice to the voiceless. Others are driven by a morbid fascination with the criminal mind, eager to catch a glimpse of the darkness that resides within these walls. Yet, in this moment, united by our shared unease, we are all simply outsiders, intruders into a world we can never truly comprehend. Our cameras, our notebooks, our pens, they feel like feeble tools against the sheer weight of human suffering contained within these walls. The Last Stop is a labyrinth of cold, sterile corridors designed to disorient and subdue. The walls, painted a sickly shade of green that seems to absorb the light, are devoid of any decoration, any hint of humanity. It's as if the very architecture is designed to crush the spirit, to remind the inmates that they are nothing more than numbers in a system that cares little for their individual stories. Heavy steel doors, each one emblazoned with a combination of letters and numbers that represent a life sentence, line the corridors. Behind each door, a story unfolds, a tale of choices made and consequences faced. But here, within the belly of the beast, those stories are reduced to whispers, muffled by concrete and steel. Surveillance cameras, their lenses like the unblinking eyes of some unseen predator, are mounted on every corner, their gaze following our every move. They are a constant reminder that we are being watched, judged, our every action scrutinized for any hint of transgression. The warden, seemingly oblivious to our discomfort, continues his relentless march through this concrete jungle, his silence speaking volumes. Every few hundred feet, we pass through heavy steel gates, each one operated by a guard who eyes us with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. The clanging of the gates as they slam shut behind us reverberates through the corridors, a sound that sets our teeth on edge and sends shivers down our spines. Inside the main prison block, the warden, his expression as impassive as ever, leads us through a final, heavily fortified checkpoint, the air growing thick with the metallic scent of fear and stale sweat. We are now entering the heart of the last stop, the main prison block where the majority of the inmates spend their days and nights, their lives measured out in the monotonous tick of the clock. The scene that greets us is one of stark, soul-crushing efficiency. Rows upon rows of steel cages, each one barely large enough to hold a bunk bed and a toilet, stretch out before us, a sea of steel and concrete as far as the eye can see. The air is filled with the cacophony of clanging metal, shouted obscenities, and the muffled sobs of despair. The warden, his voice a monotone drone against the background noise, explains the daily routine of the last stop. The inmates are allowed out of their cages for 1 hour a day, for exercise and a communal meal. The rest of the time is spent locked away, their only companions the shadows that dance across the walls and the whispers of their fellow inmates. It's a soul-crushing existence, devoid of any real purpose or meaning. The inmates here have long since abandoned any hope of rehabilitation, any dreams of a future beyond these walls. They are simply existing, their lives on hold, their futures uncertain. The warden explains that the inmates in the last stop are not all created equal. There's a hierarchy within these walls, a pecking order based on the severity of their crimes, their gang affiliations, and their perceived threat level. Those at the bottom of the food chain, the weak and the vulnerable, are often preyed upon by the stronger, more ruthless inmates. He points out a group of inmates huddled together in a corner of the exercise yard. Those are the lifers, he says, his voice devoid of any emotion. They've got nothing left to lose. They're the ones you have to watch out for.
As we make our way back through the main prison block, a sudden commotion erupts in one of the cell blocks. Shouts and screams echo down the corridors, followed by the clanging of metal against metal. The warden's demeanor changes instantly. His eyes harden, his jaw clenches, and his hand instinctively reaches for the radio clipped to his belt. "Riot!" he barks into the radio, his voice sharp and urgent. "Cell block D, get me back up in here now."
Leaving the chaotic symphony of the main prison block behind, the warden leads us deeper into the bowels of the last stop. The air grows colder, damper, the smell of disinfectant stronger, tinged with a metallic tang that sends shivers down our spines. Even the ever-present hum of fluorescent lights seems to fade. replaced by an oppressive silence broken only by the echo of our footsteps. We descend a flight of stairs, each step taking us further from the relative normalcy of the main cell blocks, further into a realm where even the most hardened criminals fear to tread. The walls are bare concrete, devoid of any markings, their blankness amplifying the sense of isolation, of being swallowed whole by this concrete behemoth. At the end of the corridor, a heavy steel door, its surface scarred with dents and scratches, marks the entrance to the isolation cell. Two guards, their faces grim and alert, stand flanking the door, their hands resting on the holsters of their sidearms. Even they, hardened veterans of countless confrontations, seem ill at ease in this place, their eyes darting around nervously as if expecting an attack from the shadows themselves. The warden produces a large ring of keys, the metal cold against his trembling fingers. He selects one, its teeth worn smooth from countless turns, and inserts it into the lock with a heavy click. The sound seems to reverberate through the corridor, amplified by the oppressive silence, a harbinger of the horrors that await within.
And within that cage, a solitary figure huddles in the shadows. It's difficult to make out his features in the dim light, but we can see that he's emaciated, his skin stretched taut over jutting bones, his hair matted and unkempt. He sits with his back to us, his shoulders slumped forward, his arms wrapped around his knees as if trying to disappear within himself. He doesn't move, doesn't acknowledge our presence in any way. This is what happens when a man is deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable, even for the last stop. He speaks in hushed tones, his voice tinged with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. It's as if he's afraid that speaking too loudly will awaken some ancient evil that lurks within this place.
The air in the courtroom crackled with a palpable tension, a stark contrast to the sterile silence of the prison corridors. Gone were the echoing footsteps and the clanging metal doors, replaced by the hushed whispers of spectators and the rustle of legal documents. Here, beneath the weight of evidence and the unflinching gaze of justice, the stories that led to the last stop were laid bare. The courtroom itself felt like a stage, a meticulously crafted arena where good and evil battled it out in a war of words and legal maneuvering. High ceilings adorned with intricate moldings spoke to a time when justice was dispensed with a sense of grandeur, a stark contrast to the grim reality of the punishments meted out within these hallowed halls. The silence was shattered by the sharp rap of the gavel, a sound that seemed to reverberate through the very foundations of the building. The judge, a stern figure robed in black, commanded attention with a mere glance, his presence a tangible reminder of the gravity of the proceedings. The wheels of justice, slow and often grinding, were about to turn once more. Judge. One by one, witnesses took the stand, their voices trembling at times as they recounted the horrors they had witnessed, the pain inflicted upon them by the men who now sat impassively in the defendant's box. Each testimony was like a shard of broken glass, reflecting a fragment of the dark truth that lay at the heart of these trials. As the days turned into weeks, the tension in the courtroom grew with each passing hour. The jury, their faces etched with the weight of the decisions they were tasked with making, listened intently to the evidence, their eyes darting back and forth between the witnesses, the attorneys, and the defendants. Their verdict, when it finally came, would have life-altering consequences for all involved. Judge, the pronouncements of guilty echoed through the courtroom like thunderclaps, each one a hammer blow against the wall of denial that the defendants had erected around themselves. One by one the charges were read, each one a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity that these men were capable of. The sentences, harsh and unforgiving, reflected the severity of their crimes. Yet, amidst the solemnity of the moment, one couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. There were no tears of remorse from the convicted, no apologies offered to those whose lives they had shattered. Their faces, hardened by years of violence and indifference, remained impassive, their eyes betraying no hint of regret or acceptance of responsibility. It was as if they viewed their convictions as an inconvenience, a temporary setback in their lives of crime. The thought sent a chill down our spines, a stark reminder of the darkness that resided within these men, a darkness that even the harshest punishment seemed unable to penetrate. Each guard we encountered, regardless of age or experience, carried themselves with an air of quiet authority. They moved with a practiced ease, their hands never straying far from their weapons, their gazes constantly scanning their surroundings for any sign of trouble. It was clear that this wasn't just a job for them, it was a calling, a commitment to maintaining order in a world teetering on the brink of chaos. He donned his helmet, its reinforced visor giving him the appearance of a futuristic warrior. The Kevlar vest, heavy and cumbersome, felt like a physical manifestation of the burden he carried on his shoulders, the weight of responsibility for his own safety and the lives of those around him. We watched as they interacted with the inmates, their faces carefully neutral, their voices firm but respectful. They maintained a delicate balance, asserting their authority while avoiding any actions that might be misconstrued as provocation. It was a high-stakes game of chess, where one wrong move could have deadly consequences.
People think we're robots. They think we don't have feelings, that we're not affected by what we see and hear every day. But we're human, just like them. We have families, we have dreams, we have nightmares.
He paused for a moment, lost in thought, his eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the concrete walls.
You see things in here, things that stay with you long after you leave this place. You hear the screams, you smell the fear, you feel the hate. It gets inside you, eats away at you. And there's no escaping it. Not really.
The relative calm of the last stop, a deceptive tranquility maintained through strict routine and constant vigilance, shattered with a suddenness that sent shivers down our spines. One moment we were walking alongside the warden, the rhythmic clang of metal gates and the murmur of distant voices the only soundtrack to our journey. The next, the air was thick with a primal roar, a guttural wave of sound that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves.
Barking into his radio, words lost in the growing cacophony.
The guards, their casual demeanor replaced by a practiced alertness, tightened their grips on their batons, their eyes scanning the surroundings for the source of the disturbance. The prison, so recently a place of controlled movement and enforced silence, was rapidly descending into chaos. The warden, his face grim but composed, turned to us, his voice betraying the urgency of the situation, and with that, he disappeared into the maelstrom, leaving us to our terrifying vigil. Through the narrow windows of the office we watched as waves of guards clad in riot gear poured into the corridor, their movements precise and coordinated. They moved with a practiced efficiency that spoke volumes about their training, their shields held high, their batons striking with a sickening thud against flesh and bone. As the last of the echoes of the riot faded, an eerie silence descended upon the last stop. It was the silence of exhaustion, of fear, and of the uneasy truce that always followed such eruptions of violence. The air, still thick with the smell of tear gas and sweat, seemed to crackle with a residual energy, a sense of anticipation that something else, something even worse, was about to happen. We were escorted out of the prison under heavy guard, our steps hurried, our eyes darting nervously from side to side. Gone was the detached curiosity we'd felt upon entering this place. We had witnessed firsthand the raw, untamed power that lurked beneath the surface of the last stop, the ever-present potential for violence that could erupt with terrifying speed. As we left the last stop behind, the massive steel gates clanging shut with a finality that echoed in the silence of our thoughts, we carried with us more than just stories and images. The experience had seeped into our very being, a chilling reminder of the darker aspects of human nature, the consequences of our actions, and the fragile line that separates civilization from chaos. The faces of the inmates, etched with a mixture of despair, defiance, and a chilling emptiness, continued to haunt our waking thoughts. We had entered the prison seeking to understand the realities of life behind bars, to shed light on a world hidden from most. We had expected to encounter hardened criminals, men who had committed unspeakable acts. And while we certainly encountered such individuals, we also found ourselves confronted with a complex tapestry of human experience. Stories of poverty, addiction, mental illness, and a profound sense of hopelessness that permeated every corner of the last stop. The last stop, in many ways, serves as a microcosm of the larger human condition. It is a stark reminder of the consequences of our choices, the ripple effects of violence and cruelty, and the enduring power of both hope and despair. It is a place where the worst of humanity is on full display, but also a place where we are forced to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the society we have created. As we reflect upon our experience, we are left with more questions than answers. What leads a person to commit such heinous acts that warrant confinement in a place like the last stop? Can true rehabilitation ever occur within such an environment, or does the very nature of confinement breed only more despair and resentment? And what does the existence of such places say about our collective responsibility to address the root causes of crime and violence in our society?